Good afternoon, everybody. This is Nick from Real Progressives, and I want to talk a little bit today about student debt relief, one of Bernie's primary pillars. And I also want to speak to the quote unquote fight for $15 minimum wage nationally. And overall, I want to always speak to this idea of debt, public debt, private debt held by you, me, and mom and pops around the nation. So I think I wanted to start today looking at the sheer magnitude of private debt that Americans hold and really touch more into specifically student debt and how student debt eradication, I don't like student debt relief, I like eradication, like permanently gone, burnt, blowtorched away, would really benefit the 99%. But I want to talk about debt first to start in terms of how that is how the neoliberal oligarchy functions. It functions on private debt. So some private debt is necessary. In order to secure a home loan, it would be crazy to say that even with a two-income earning family that's middle class, that to have $300,000 to pay outright and to own their home outright, well, that would be crazy. Likewise, even to buy a $20,000 new car, used car outright would be crazy. But those two particular sectors notwithstanding, in my opinion, the rest of it really needs to go away. The rest of the debt aspect of the equation needs to go away. And I think we've all been collectively gaslighted into believing that we need to carry some measure of revolving debt. And that's normal, and that's okay. And it doesn't matter if it's 15%. So I was researching the statistics on credit card debt. And what I learned is that at this moment in time, or as of December of 2018, the United States economy is actually currently holding $420 billion in revolving credit card debt. Take that in for a moment. And the average household holds $7,000 in revolving credit card debt. So if you look at that, just go back 40 years. Do you remember a time in which the idea of holding, adjusted for, the value of the dollar at that moment in time, holding credit card debt, revolving credit card debt at 15% interest would be outrageous? And that's because that was the time of the greatest prosperity of the United States. So there was no, carried interest at, $5,000 credit card revolving debt for virtually anybody. And now it's the norm and we accept it. And I find that incredibly problematic. Another number I want to throw out there is that we're carrying right now $8.8 trillion in housing debt. And of course, your home, provided you live in a market that is generally trending upward, your home is an asset, so that's good, relatively speaking. And if you got it and you locked it in with a fixed interest rate of 2, 3, 4%, and you're credit worthy at that point in time, and you're able to make your mortgage payments, that's great. Over time, you're earning equity in your home. And at the same time, should you and your spouse or your partner lose employment for protracted periods of time, you risk defaulting on that loan and going into foreclosure. That's definitely a legitimate thing, and we talk about housing bubbles. The laws have changed actually over time with regard to credit card debt, such that it makes it less possible to avoid going into bankruptcy and evading that debt completely. So it's quite possible that even if you go bankrupt on your credit card debt, that you can still be chased down by the man, Bank of America, Chase. But I think that the most important thing I want to talk about today is Bernie's concept of student debt relief, student debt eradication. I want to throw out some numbers there too. So currently there are 44 million borrowers of student loans. That's a lot of people. That's more, most adults who've gone through college who couldn't afford to pay it outright, which is most people, are carrying some measure of student debt. And the total number in aggregate for the United States is $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. And so I did the numbers on that. It's really easy. You just divide 1.5 trillion by 44 million, and you come up with roughly the average, the mean is $34,000 in student loan debt per person. One of the unique things about student debt, student loans, well, there's two parts. The first part is when you go to the loan officer or the person at your university, and they give you the talk about it, and they let you know, kind of, and by the way, you're going to have to pay this back no matter what. You're getting a degree in art history, well, by the way, you're going to have to pay this back no matter what. Well, so what we've got here is an interesting idea, is that, the old adage of the things that are, the axioms, what is sure is death. Okay, Bill Mitchell talks about it. Death is a certainty. Taxes, federal taxation, some measure of taxation, whether indirectly or directly to the federal government, is also inevitable. So that's death and taxes. And as interest rates have gone up, but if you're carrying $34,000 of student debt and it's over 30 years on a fixed interest rate, fixed payment plan, or maybe you're, like many other people, and you're above the mean, and you have $60,000 or $90,000 in student loans, well, then you're looking at paying anywhere between, I'm ballparking at $250 to $750 a month. Well, only 15 years ago, $750 a month was a mortgage payment. So now we have a generation of people, multiple generations of people, actually, if you look at the whole of it, who's carrying student loans with two mortgages, And even with your home mortgage, you can actually get out of it. It's incredibly painful and horrible, and default on your loan and go into foreclosure, get kicked out of your house, your credit score goes down forever. I'm laughing because it's that fucking horrible. But with student loans, they're gonna follow you until you pay them off or you die. One of the two. That's the case. So I wanted to talk about that a bit here, and I want to keep emphasizing and hammering away the point of, private debt, more or less, other than, paying for a car or paying for a home, is equivalent to neoliberalism. It goes part and parcel with neoliberalism. So that's kind of the MO, is to keep people constantly on their heels, constantly in debt. When you look at debt, and it's something that we now take as given, we're gonna, if you look, I told you, $7,000 per household is the average amount of money that people are carrying in credit card debt alone. And unless you got it at a really good rate, that could be variable. That could also have been locked in at 16% if you weren't very creditworthy at that point in time. That's a lot of interest that you're paying on that. And there's no guarantees that you're ever going to actually pay it off. And for that matter, if you're carrying $7,000 or maybe $10,000 in credit card debt, what's to say that you ever have the ability to actually ever pay it down? So we have a crisis. We have a crisis on many different fronts economically. And I didn't think I would say this, but I want to say this here, that if you count for people after the global financial crisis who fell out of the job market altogether, just gave up on looking, people who re-entered the economy getting paid a third of what they were paid in their prior employment situation, and people who are now working 2 or 3 jobs, and that's not hyperbole, 2 or 3 jobs at $12 an hour just to get to 30 hours per week. None of them guarantee health insurance benefits, and of course none of them are paying for 401k or an IRA. We have a very big problem with regard to the measurements. Did you get that? The measurements. This idea that we're at full employment is absurd. It still remains that way. And now we've got, Democrats talking about it as, we're at full employment. We're not at full employment. Full employment to any, someone who has even the smallest acumen with regard to economics means that the economy has 0% involuntary unemployment, and everybody who's working within the economy is able to pay their bills based upon wages that they've earned. So even 3% is completely inaccurate. And from what I've heard, it's closer to 6 or 7%. So that's millions of people who can't afford to pay their bills for one reason or another. And by and large, a lot of it is involuntarily in these situations. I don't think a person who is making $60,000 a year in a middle management situation actually really wants to work at Home Depot and Lowe's and Walmart, for, a general income of, $12 an hour. I really don't think that was their first idea. I think they probably went through many rounds of interviews and periods of depression and so forth, emotional depression, before they landed on this 3-job situation, and they're working until midnight and they're getting up at 5 in the morning. So the economy is still in the shitter. That's the point. So now what I want to do is I want to address what could happen if a student debt relief program was implemented by, say, the next Congress. So what would happen, is this is fiscal policy, is that we could call it something, and it'll probably end up being called something like this: the Student Debt Relief Act of 2021. And what that would be is that for all people with outstanding debt to Sally Mae and Nelnet and whoever's carrying their student debt loans would all of a sudden have a debt jubilee. And that's kind of a debt relief jubilee. All of a sudden we're free. We're not free of everything. This is why we need an entire platform. Now imagine this. So Congress writes the act, and then that act is signed into law. And then from there, the federal government pays off all of the debt all at once. Now I imagine there'll be a little bit of a bottleneck there, because you're going to need a lot of keyboard jockeys at the Federal Reserve crediting 44 million accounts. People are going to be working overtime. I hope they get paid time and a half for that. Maybe we can make sure that we can reinstate time and a half for people who are working full time. Wouldn't that be nice? I won't go into a tangent about how Americans who have full-time work are, we work harder than every nation on earth. They're working 60 hours for $40, for 40-hour-a-week jobs, so their $25 an hour is really worth $17 an hour. But that's a tangent. So what happens there, and this is an interesting point in terms of the idea of hyperinflation, accelerating inflation, devaluing the dollar, however you want to look at it. So it's not as though, take my case in point, I have roughly $60,000 in remaining student debt. It's not as though all of a sudden I have $60,000 in my pocket once Congress orders the Federal Reserve to credit Nelnet. It's not all of a sudden I have $60,000 in my pocket. It's just $60,000 less in revolving debt. Does that make sense? And please, when we get to the comments section here, please say, well, all right, this is really, it's not that hard to understand. You don't have $60,000. You just have $60,000 less in debt. What you have more of is more disposable income. And so what you can do with that, and what you do with that is ultimately your choice. I'm an American. I believe in choice. So if you want to be cuckoo and crazy, or fuck it. If you want to be a human being and you want to go to Bora Bora and put a little bit more in your credit cards, knowing that you have that much less to pay monthly towards your former saddled noose, your harness of student loan debt. Yeah, sure, you could do that. That's fine. I wouldn't hate on that. I think it's a great idea. I think people need a relief. People need relief from the pain we've been experiencing under austerity and neoliberalism for 45 to 50 years. But I think what we would actually see is that people would look at their their revolving credit card debt, and they'd start to hack away at that, hack it. All of a sudden, they're not paying $150 per month in revolving credit card debt, in the interest in revolving credit card debt. They're paying it down. The number's lower. The amount of interest they're paying is lower. And lo and behold, within a year or two, they have $0 in credit card debt. In fact, they might cut their credit card, or they might just hide it somewhere and only use it in an emergency situation. Okay? So now we've got hacking away at revolving credit card debt. Now we might start to look at paying it forward. If you have a mortgage, you might pay, an additional $200 per month towards your mortgage payment. It's responsible. It's a good idea. It's smart. It's that much quicker you get the equity in your home, and if you want to sell it, you can sell it, or if you want to pay it off, you can pay it off in 10 more years instead of 15 more years or whatever. So that's, being fiscally responsible as an individual, as a household. Another thing you can do is you can go and be like, one of the middle class and upper class people. You can go hire a financial planner at your local credit union, and you can get a mutual fund, and that mutual fund can fluctuate in terms of your contribution to it. More bonds in economic downturns, and more stocks as the market is going up, and so forth. So now all of a sudden you're part of what the game is for the upper class and the upper 10%, 20% earners. You're now able to make money, passively. Great. So that's kind of people who already own homes. The functional economy becomes stronger as a consequence of eliminating student loans. So say you've never owned a home, and say you want to be a first-time home buyer, but your credit score is in the shitter because you're carrying $60,000 in student loans, and you have revolving credit card debt of $10,000, and you go to your loan officer, or you contact a lender, and you say, or multiple, you go to Quicken Loans and you say, I want to get a loan for a home. Well, sorry, you're not creditworthy. So you're stuck with your $1,400, a month rental payment for your 800 square foot apartment, depending upon where you live. You're stuck with that. You can't actually get a mortgage. So what we've got here is the possibility, as you hack away at your revolving debts, your credit card debt in particular, you've got the possibility of now being able to buy a home. Great. Lock in the interest rate at 4.5 or 5%, and you can get a good interest rate because your credit score has gone up. This is how it works. So you can actually buy yourself a functional car, a good car, 2 or 3 year old car. Then never buy a new car. Everybody knows that, but that one's for free. Buy yourself a used car, a 2 or 3 year old car, and make sure it runs well, and pay the $200 a month you have on that, and hopefully, again, because your credit score has gone up and you're making a decent living. And this is the interesting point. So you get it. So the broader economy starts to function far better as a consequence of student debt relief. This is for people 22 to 72 years old. It applies to anybody in the economy who's carrying debt around student loans. Now, I want to talk about this, and I think that it's really important to name the idea of the fight for 15. And I think the fight for 15, a lot of people dismiss that policy as incrementalism and as not really a long-term response to economic hardship. And I happen to agree. But I want to say this, that if you look at any town in the nation that has already adopted a $15 an hour minimum wage, I can pretty much guarantee you, and this is because of microeconomic forces within localities, that if the minimum wage is $15, do you think that every single employer that was formerly employing at $9 or $7.50 an hour or whatever they were employing at for entry-level jobs, do you think that they're all going to say 15? No, that's not how it works. There's going to be competition for unemployed people. So what you would see is that the people who are hired would be around 15.50 or 16.50, and people joke about that, and I think it's really dismissive. $1 per hour, $40, 40 hours per week, 40 hours per week at 50 weeks per year is $1,000 or $2,000. $2 is $4,000. So it's a real thing. It's cost of living increase if you're getting $17 per hour. And of course, that increases consumer demand, that increases the ability to purchase goods and services within the economy, and it's good. Here's the problem. Here's what I'll agree with my MMT savvy people, is that with the federal job guarantee, we've got a little bit of a different bird. I'm minimizing how little it is that you don't just have the $15 an hour minimum wage. You have, first of all, jobs on demand. You have jobs you would like on demand, okay? So jobs on demand and jobs that you would like on demand. And you don't even have to have really basically any qualifications for the various federal job guarantee jobs and so forth. You just go to the job office and you say, I'd like to start today. I'd like to start and I want to be a gardener. So now we have nationwide minimum wage at $15 per hour, with or without the federal job guarantee. But then with the federal job guarantee, you've got guaranteed 40 hours a week of employment. So you've got a guaranteed living wage single job. Maybe it's $16 or $17 an hour. I don't really know what they're going to come up with overall. And then you've got health benefits also. So you don't have to go into the ACA. So medical benefits are still a commodity. God damn it, they're still a commodity. But with the federal job guarantee, they're guaranteed. And so you have health care, you have dental care, you have optical care, eye care. And you can get all the things that you need done for your well-being done, and for your family done. And not only that, you have a pension, 401k, whatever they want to call it, whatever the portfolio, the investment portfolio that is offered through the job guarantee. But what I see the fight for 15 is a step in that direction. But on the other hand, if we stop there, we're missing the idea of the benefits of anchoring the economy to labor. Because as I said, so even if you get a $15 minimum wage, it doesn't guarantee full-time employment. It doesn't even guarantee you're going to get a job. It definitely doesn't guarantee you're going to get health benefits. And it definitely doesn't guarantee you're going to get a pension. Think about the macroeconomic implications of increased aggregate demand as a consequence of eliminating in the keystroke 44 million keystrokes. 44 million keystrokes eliminating the debt that people are carrying with them, that they can't escape. It's gone. And of course, Stephanie Kelton talks about pairing this with free public college, and there are other policies that need to go with it. But for now, just think about how much more people could buy, invest, save, travel, enjoy their fucking life You know, just imagine that if they had an additional, you know, 3 to 700, $3 to $1,000 in disposable income. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a good evening. Bye.